Hello and welcome to Chapter 5, Lecture number 1. This lecture is on species interactions. There's a table in the book that shows some of the different species interactions, and for each of them, it gives the effect on species 1 and the effect on species 2. So it kind of gives a sense: does it benefit or hurt or have no effect? The interactions we're going to look at in class today are mutualism, which is a plus plus. So each species has a positive effect. We're going to look at predation, parasitism, and herbivory. These are plus minus situations. So each species there's an effect, a positive effect on species 1 and a negative effect on species 2. And competition, which is a negative negative, right? So both species are hurt by the competition for resources. So we'll start out with competition. Competition can occur when resources are limited, so it can be competition for food or a nesting site or a mate, all these things. We can talk about intra-specific competition, which means competition within the same species. So for instance, if two pileated woodpeckers are battling for a nesting site or a food source, that would be intraspecific competition. Interspecific competition, inter means between or amongst, and so this is competition that occurs between two species, two different species, two or more. So the kind of competition that's occurring in the image here is an example of interspecific competition. The nuthatch, pileated woodpecker, sapsucker, and brown creeper are all competing with each other for food from this specific tree. Over time, competing species may evolve to use slightly different resources or to use shared resources in different ways. And that's what's happening in the example between the four bird species. This process is called resource partitioning. So the competition creates behavior in which the birds, in this case, split up the resource. In competitive interactions, each participant has a negative effect on the other participant because each takes resources the other could have used. So these are negative interactions for both species. Predation. Predators kill and consume prey. Predation is the process by which an individual of one species, a predator, hunts, captures, kills, and consumes an individual of another species, its prey. So obviously this is a plus for the predator and a negative for the prey. So it's a plus negative interaction, or plus minus. Predation can sometimes drive population dynamics. As you can see in the image, this long-term data set between the lynx and the hare, some Canadian data here going back quite some time. You can see there's some pretty interesting population cycles going on there. We also see this kind of interaction with the wolves and moose on Isle Royale. Predation also has evolutionary ramifications. Okay, so more adept predators will leave more healthier offspring. So if a lynx is successful in capturing hares, it's more likely to be able to live to reproductive age and pass on its genes, right? Leading to the evolution of adaptations that make better hunters, so that population will become, could be selected, right, to become better hunters. The same selective pressure acts on prey species, which evolve defenses against being eaten. Speed, coloration, not tasting good, those sort of things. Parasites exploit living hosts. There's all sorts of different kinds of parasites, but when we talk about parasitism, we're talking about a relationship in which one organism, the parasite, so in this example the sea lamprey, is the parasite, depends on another, the host. So sea lampreys depend on fish, other fish, to nourish them. So the sea lamprey will use that rasping mouth here. This is a jawless fish, and the tongue here is kind of like a drill bit. It will attach onto a fish and then feed on that fish, um, essentially getting the blood and the proteins and all the rest of it from it while the fish is still alive. And then either the fish will die or the sea lamprey will become full and satiated and will disconnect from the fish. Sea lampreys are important exotic species in the Great Lakes. Another example of parasitism is the nest parasitism that we see in brown-headed cowbirds. So these are free-living parasites, right, which come into their contact with their host only infrequently, right? Brown-headed cowbirds are the only Native American birds to always lay their eggs in nests of other species. And then the young, right, are raised by the foster parents, if you will. The young, as you can see, grow faster than uh, the native, the species that's raising them offspring. They monopolize the food supply and often outcompete the others. So the history of brown-headed cowbirds is sort of interesting. Before European settlement, they followed the bison herds, so they're nomadic across the great grasslands and prairies in North America. And this parasitic lifestyle, right, where they leave their offspring to be tended by other parents while they're developing, makes a lot of sense if you think about their nomadic lifestyle where they're traveling with the bison, always moving. Concept of coevolution. We have a variety of um, examples here, but hosts and parasites also evolve in response to one another in a process called coevolution. So we can see that happening with predator-prey. We can also see that happening in the situation with parasitism. These are examples, actually better examples when we're talking about predation. You've got cryptic coloration where an organism blends in with its background, difficult to detect it for predators. You've got warning coloration, which often signifies that the species is toxic or tastes bad. And you've got mimicry, where you've got an organism that mimics or looks like another organism that's a little bit more dangerous than maybe it is. So the same sort of thing happens within hosts and parasites as it does in prey and predators. And that process is called coevolution. It's kind of a arms race between the host and the predator, or the host and the parasite, or the prey and the predator. Herbivores. Herbivores exploit plants. Herbivory occurs when animals feed on the tissues of plants. In most cases, herbivory does not kill a plant outright, but may affect its growth and reproduction. Now, of course, some areas are also dependent on, some plant species and communities are dependent on herbivores, and they can't grow well without the herbivores, or will be outcompeted. Mutualists help one another. So the concept of mutualism. There is a couple examples here I'll talk about. In a mutualistic relationship, you have both species benefiting from each other, and so you may have heard of lichens. That's that orange substance. You've certainly seen it before. That's growing on the rocks. They can grow in very harsh environments and are often one of the first species of organisms that come into a new area after a disturbance. Lichens are a symbiotic relationship between an algae and a fungi, so two different organisms that live together in what we call a symbiosis, right? So these organisms live together in physical contact, and they each benefit each other. Another example of mutualism is pollination. and you can, in which you have an insect in this case delivering the pollen from one plant to another as it feeds itself. It gets sugar or nectar in exchange for doing this delivery. So it's a mutualistic relationship in which each of the two organisms involved, the plant, the flower here, and the bee, both benefit. All right, that's it for species interactions, and thanks for listening.